Come join me on a sketchy trip to a sketchy log cabin in the middle of a dark and shadowy corner of a sketchy woodland where absolutely nothing sketchy could possibly happen. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Oktoberfest here on Thumb Together. My name is Andrew Fantasia. Today on Oktoberfest, we're starting our third and final category of horror movies that I want to talk to you about this month. And that third and final category is plain and simple, my favorite horror movies of all time. These are ones that they could fall into the other categories. They could fall into childhood treasures or obscure gems, but overall they are just my favorite. And I'm going to tell you why. And we're starting today with The Cabin in the Woods. The Cabin in the Woods came out in spring of 2012, right before The Avengers. So we were all just hyped or ready to begin with. And the director of The Avengers, Joss Whedon, is one of the writers of Cabin in the Woods. And the main writer and director of Cabin in the Woods is a guy named Drew Goddard, who is one of my favorite writers in Hollywood. So this was just a perfect storm of stuff that I love by people that I love as I was waiting for another thing that I was absolutely certain I was going to love. And yes, I did end up loving it too. That was confusing even for me. Cabin in the Woods tells what appears to be, on the surface, a very cliche story of 5 college kids who decide to take a trip to a cabin in the woods. Fancy that. These 5 college kids are a lot like 5 college kids you would see in any other scary movie. One of them is a sort of sweet but shy girl who's just trying to find her place in the world. One of them is a big, strong jock. One of them is the big, strong jock's really flirtatious, promiscuous girlfriend. One of them is a really smart, kind of geeky guy. And one of them is a guy who just likes to tell jokes and get stoned. Again, really no novel concepts to be found here. Once they get to the cabin in the woods, spooky stuff starts happening to them. And then all of a sudden, they are running for their lives trying to escape. Again, you've heard this all before, so why is The Cabin in the Woods so great? Well, if you've seen it, you know exactly why it's great. You know exactly what the twist of Cabin in the Woods is. If you have not seen Cabin in the Woods, if you know nothing about it, I kind of envy you, because that means you get to experience this film for the first time, and my goodness, is it ever an experience. Even though this movie is already 7.5 years old, I just can't bring myself to spoil what is actually going on in The Cabin in the Woods, because it's just that good. If you've not seen it, all I can say is please, for the love of God, watch it, especially if you're a horror fan. If you grew up on a steady diet of Friday the 13th and the Wrong Turnses and the Evil Deadses, then you are primed and ready. You are the target audience for a movie like The Cabin in the Woods. When it's over, you're going to want to watch it again right off the bat to catch the things you missed the first time. And I don't know about you, but I have always felt since I saw it that I would love to see alternate versions of this movie. And again, I can't explain why I want to see alternate versions without spoiling the plot of the movie. But if you know what I'm talking about, you know that there are many different directions this plot could have gone. And even though the point is it goes in the certain direction it goes, I kind of wish we saw other movies in this same world where the other things happened, just to see what that looks like. Now that I've probably alienated every single viewer who has not seen the movie, I'm going to apologize and just say, do yourself a favor, watch The Cabin in the Woods, watch it with an open mind, and watch it trying to understand the sort of tongue-in-cheek commentary the writers are trying to make. Because modern horror is sort of an institution, and that institution has traditions that even the most revered horror directors, even the most imaginative horror directors, still tend to adhere to those traditions, not necessarily always to their benefit. At the end of the day, guys, remember, there are 10 Friday the 13th movies plus a spin-off, and really, they are all exactly the same thing. You're not getting anything different. Even the Halloween franchise, which I, for the most part, love, has 2 original movies in it. Out of, 13 now? The Cabin in the Woods calls this lack of originality to attention. It brings it out into the forefront of things, even going so far as to call their movie one of the most dumb, generic titles you could call a horror movie. The Cabin in the Woods. It sounds boring, but there's a point to that. There is a point that they're trying to make by parading out all the cliches and saying, here they are, These all exist, and we're going to have some fun with them by pointing out exactly why they exist the way that they do. That's as cryptic as I can be at this point. I don't want to talk about it anymore because I'm going to end up spoiling something, and Cabin in the Woods, frankly, deserves better than to have this schmo spoil its ending for people. So watch the movie. You will not be disappointed. It is an absolute horror treasure, and as far as I'm concerned, has cemented its spot among the Horror Hall of Fame. But that's Oktoberfest for today. Stay tuned, we're rip-rolling right ahead. Halloween is right around the corner, and I'll be there every step of the way till then with more horror movies for you to discover. Until next time, my friends, adios.